So as we saw in the previous video, there are three factors that cause the tides, and we looked at those three factors. But in our drawing that we did, the moon stayed stationary, and the moon actually rotates around the Earth. Okay, so the moon goes in a circle around the Earth every month, and so as that moon moves, it's going to change the direction and the pull of the water on Earth. And so when the moon and the sun line up, like we have drawn here, okay, um, the gravity of both of those objects are going to pull together. And as those gravities pull together, it's actually going to create larger bulges in the water. Okay, so you're going to get super, super, super high tides, and then because you get super, super high tides, you're going to get very, very low tides. And so when the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are lined up, either how we have it here, or also when the Moon is over here, um, you're going to get super high tides and super low tides. And this type of tide, when the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun are lined up, is called spring tides. When the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are at right angles, so when the Earth or Moon is located either here or here, okay, we'll erase these. What you're going to get are these things called neap tides. And what happens in neap tides is because the moon is closer to the Earth and it actually creates the largest influence on the tides. Um, when the moon is at right angles to the Earth, it's going to kind of pull the water this way, okay, on either side. And you'll still get a bulge here because you'll still have the gravity of the sun. You'll still get a bulge here because of the centrifugal force. But as the Earth rotates through, you're going to have much less of a difference between a low tide and a high tide because the water is much more evenly distributed. And that's called a neap tide. So that's the difference between a spring tide and a neap tide. So spring tides are when the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun are lined up. And neap tides are when the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are at right angles. So if you look at a tide chart of a month on Earth, anywhere on Earth, you'll actually see that the tides go from a spring tide to a neap tide, back to a spring tide, back to a neap tide. So you go back and forth throughout the month. So once again, here's a picture that's much better than my drawings. So you've got on the top part the picture of the Earth, okay, and the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun all lined up, which creates these bigger bulges here, okay, and then down at the bottom you can see the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun at right angles, which would be a neap tide. So as you rotate through, okay, there's not much difference between low tide and high tide, and so you get a neap tide.